Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Oh, wait a minute. Someone else is introducing us tonight.
Ah, all right. Let me do it.
Hello.
Yes, hold on a second. Let me get our alien friend to introduce us.
You didn't click that. You got it muted. I see the mute. Got to unmute it. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
You were muted, Kevin.
You're muted, Kevin.
Oh, I went mute. There we go.
You got to do it again because we didn't hear you because you're muted.
Oh, I can't hear y'all. What's going on?
Oh, Jesus.
The spirit is having a technical difficulty. Please be advised.
Can y'all hear me? I can't hear y'all.
Yes, I can hear you.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the show tonight, everybody. Kevin is having a hard time. Can anybody else hear us? Somebody's watching. Can you hear us now?
I don't know what's going on.
Let me see. Let me go over here and see if we're being heard on the
Let me try to come back.
Let me see if we're being heard on the internet here. Come on.
I'm going to go look and see, too.
Can you hear me, Catherine?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, it's just Kevin then, I assume. So bear with us while Kevin overcomes his technical difficulty. It'll be worth your weight in gold, I assume. So bear with us while Kevin overcomes his...
There we go.
All right, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know what happened there.
I don't know. It's a hiccup in the hiccup system.
Yeah,
the spirits are talking to us.
All right, everybody. We got two people already here, and so Kevin's got a special introduction for our show. Pay close attention.
Oh, so you didn't?
You couldn't hear it a while ago because you're muted.
I don't know why. I didn't even click to mute myself. I have
no idea. Quit making excuses, Kevin.
I didn't.
You're beginning to sound like a narcissist now.
Here we go.
Got 3 people watching now. UFOs is going to bring them in.
Here we go.
Hello and welcome back to Abnormal Alabama with your hosts, Dr. Kelsey Brown, my haunted doll Stephen Kane, and Lady Catherine.
And with that, welcome to another Tuesday night of heathenistic, abnormal, weird, strange, and satanic fun. Did I say satanic fun? So we got an interesting show tonight, and we're going to talk about some alien UFO type stuff. I don't know what kind of stories Kevin came up with, but I was out of town all day today, so I am an alien in my own house. But here's the deal: to start this show off tonight, Kevin just received via the mail or UPS or FedEx. I don't know how he got it, but he's got a coffin crib that he's going to do a EVP session on. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
Spirit box session. I guess he's going to put it on camera. He's going to have his REM pod. This is going to be fun because if it's a coffin crib, I guess maybe some dead little child was in it at one time.
Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of narrow. It'd be a tiny little baby. Of course, in 1895, I guess people were smaller back then.
Well, it could have read a preemie.
Yeah, but I don't know if they ever really buried any kids in this. They named it a coffin crib because
they just laid them out in there.
Well, they named them.
Back in the Victorian age, they would lay them out, dress them up, and take pictures of the dead.
Yeah. Well, what I read was that it was not. This crib was named that way because of the shape, but I don't know.
I know. I'm just being silly. I know.
Nah, you're just being silly.
I'm just being silly. But I would imagine, what year, how old do you think that coffin crib is?
It's 18. Well, it's written on there 1895.
Okay, so if this is 1895, I could pretty much guarantee you that whatever baby used that crib, is now dead.
Yep.
Yep. Look at Western UFO hunter Kevin Kane over there. So welcome to the Run of the Creek Show tonight. We're going to talk, first of all, we're going to talk to a coffin crib. Is Kevin ready? Kevin's kind of dragging his feet today.
I'm not dragging my feet.
I think the heat got to him. He's real slow.
No, I'm answering a question there. Okay.
Oh, look at that. He's texting. He's as bad as
because I have this hooked up to do our wonderful introduction that you wanted me to do. So now it's necrophonic.
Necrophonics. Okay. We'll go back out so you can see this crib.
And there it is. This is a coffin crib. Again, from what I understood and what the seller told me, it was named that way because of the shape. It's like a coffin. But whether or not they ever displayed a dead baby in this, or and the pillow, the lady gave me that just for something decorative to go in there. This came from Massachusetts up there. Lots of strange things in Massachusetts. They got witches and witchcraft, things like that. My painting, Crimson, the blood painting, came from there. And now this coffin crib that may or may not be haunted. If there is a spirit there, I want to introduce the items here. I've got this K2 meter. As you can see, when it's touched on the antenna, it goes silly and makes noises. So hopefully if a spirit will touch that little metal rod, that antenna coming up there, it will cause this thing to light up. And then we got a bell. If you want to just ring that bell, you can do that. That's an old antique hotel bell, turn of the century. So I've not heard that thing ring by itself that I know of. But let's see what we can find out here. I'm going to start the necrophonic. If there are any ghosts here, or anybody with this coffin crib, please come close to this flat box in my hand and talk, and I can hear you. Hi. Or you can play with one of these toys I've introduced to you, the bell or the funny skull with the wire sticking out, the antenna. Is there anybody with this cradle? Is there a baby with this cradle? Did y'all hear that baby noise? It was that. That was pretty cool. A baby noise out of the spirit box. What is the baby's name? Hey, what is the name of the baby I just heard? That's the first time I've gotten a baby noise through the spirit box. Did a baby pass away in this crib? Did it belong to the baby's parents? Or any spirits who can help us out, please do. Where's the baby now? There? Where is there? Are there any spirits that can help? Please answer. I don't think the little baby can talk. I heard it go earlier. Who did the baby belong to? Cursed? Is this crib cursed? No. That's good to know. Was it a curse that caused the baby to die? Did I hear witch? Suddenly, I feel like this little coffin crib has a story to it that I don't know about. If there are any spirits connected to it, please touch this metal rod on this skull and make the eyes light up. I know there's a baby attached because I heard it make a little whimper noise on the spirit box. Do you like the pillow that the lady put in the coffin before she sent it to me? It's a nice little pillow. Was this made in 1895? Yeah. This crib came from Massachusetts. Is that where you're from? Are the baby's mommy and daddy with? Is the mommy and daddy with the baby? Is there any other spirit with this crib? Who made this crib? Who else is here? How many spirits are here right now? Is there a child spirit here? If you are, can you hit that bell and let me know you're here? I'd love to hear from you. Can you touch this and touch that antenna, that metal rod, and make the skull flash? Don't be afraid of it. It's not going to hurt you. Or maybe if you'd like to play with the cradle, can you make it rock? I saw we have a Facebook user said it's a tiny baby about 3 weeks old. And if you weren't on earlier, about 10 minutes ago when I started this, I did get a baby whimpering on the spirit box, which I can't wait to go back and play. But it made a noise on the spirit box. So that's really cool. If there's any spirits here who can help the baby, let me know the baby's name. Because we need somebody to help speak for it. Him or her. Did you say Jewel? Is Jewel the baby's name? One of our viewers says they heard the name Evelyn. Is Evelyn the baby's name? So I heard Jewel and they heard Evelyn. So can you say the name of the baby loud and clear for us? Is the baby a boy or a girl? Are any of my spirit daughters here? If so, can you look at the cradle and see if you see a baby there? Say yes or no. Yeah, I heard that. Can you tell me the baby's name? It's a girl? I heard girl, I think. We heard Evelyn and Jewel. Maybe their whole name is Evelyn Jewel or Jewel Evelyn. Evelyn Jules is mom's name, says the Facebook user. Thank you for letting us know that. We always like to get comments. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us? Oh, that's Catherine. That's Catherine Marie doing all the commenting. No wonder I wasn't seeing the name. So we got a little baby spirit. I bet it loves to sleep in this cradle, doesn't it? Catherine is focused tonight. Are there any other spirits with the baby? If so, please tell me your names. No. That sounds like one of my little spirit pumpkins running around here.
Kevin.
Would you like a baby doll to go with the crib? Yeah, I thought her little yeah. Of course, we already have a spirit baby with it. I don't want to crowd the spirit baby. What else would you like to tell us? I just feel a lot of energy in my heart for this little baby. I don't know how to explain it. The energy. I think I'm picking up on it too. Catherine says there's an older child there too, wearing blue short pants and a cap. He is very shy. Well, that's okay. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. We love to hear from you all, but I'm certainly not going to force you. I wish I knew what the little boy's name is. If anybody wants to speak for him. I wonder if the baby and the boy are siblings. I see the name Michael. Like that's the name of the little boy, Michael. Catherine got the name Michael. Well, hello, Michael, and welcome to your new home. Oh, I heard a little voice say hi. Just a very soft voice said hi on the spirit box. Michael, if that was you, hello back to you. And you and your baby sibling make yourselves at home here. I hope you like where I had the crib at. Yeah. So it said yes to the name Michael. That's good. Well, this is fun. It's a man that responded for him. Okay. Yeah, there's other spirits kind of chiming in here, which is perfectly fine to help them out. There's a man here too, says Catherine. Yeah, I heard a man's voice several times on here, so I figured he might be helping, or maybe he's linked to the crib too. If the man is willing to talk, can you please tell me your name? I thought I heard a loud Tom. I don't know if that's what it said. Are you related to the child and the baby? To Michael and the baby? Thomas Sam, says Catherine. Well, it's nice to meet you, Tom. I hope to get more from you later. We have to do the rest of our show. Is there anything you'd like to say before we move on? What would you like to say? All right, we're going to go ahead and wind things down. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the box. I'm going to count down from 5. Any spirits that don't belong, please be sure to go back to where you came from. And spirits who are here, please be sure to back away. And I'm going to cut this off at the count of 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Her little voice say bye. Well, we have a haunted coffin cradle then.
Oh, I said Omar. Omar.
Did y'all hear that baby at the beginning of that? That baby went,
Absolutely.
Huh?
Absolutely.
You heard it?
Absolutely. How you doing, Omar?
Hello, Omar.
Early bird tonight. We're going to talk about some UFOs and strange, that kind of weirdness. I don't know what. Kevin and I have not had time to review each other's stuff, so we maybe walk on top of each other. I don't know.
I was going to tell something too, right quick. Last night I had an interesting event.
A UFO?
It's not UFO, but it's ghostly related. I was on a show last night for 2 hours. Searching the paranormal. That lady here I think they're down in South Alabama interviewed me.
Oh, is that the couple we met?
Yes, and they're
doing. When are you gonna line them up for our show?
Yeah, but we got to the end of the show. I was talking about that crazy Jack in the Box clown that I've got sealed up in there, and all of a sudden the call that she was on, she kept getting dropped. I was still there, the producer was still there, but her phone started dropping.
Huh.
And when I stopped talking about the clown, I said, I'm going to shut up about it then. And all of a sudden, everything was fine. So that's not the first time I've had technical difficulties on somebody else's show just from talking about a spirit I have here. So I just thought that'd be interesting to share tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The UFOs, yeah.
I want you to check out this doll I have, Kevin.
Oh, you have.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a spirit box on it one night. I keep hearing little kid voices.
Oh.
We've recently brought 2 new ones in.
Well, I'm gonna get the ball rolling here with a UFO story.
Yeah.
We're gonna get right on it because it's already 7:31 p.m. on a Tuesday night. This is next. Is it the last? No, we got one more Tuesday left in this month, don't we?
Yep.
So
one more Tuesday.
We're gonna go all the way back to earlier time. Actually, we're going to talk about the evening of September 1, 1969, before most of you people were ever thought of. Well, earlier time, actually. Okay, somebody's got me bleeding over here. Berkshire County, Massachusetts. It's a wide open countryside that makes it a popular vacation destination. But the rural territories once heralded as a hotbed of UFO activity. Following the alleged sighting that took place on that evening of September 1, 1969. More than 50 years later, the true scary story of the Berkshire UFO incident remains perhaps the most chilling tale of an alien abduction on record. Are you ready?
Yes.
According to witnesses' creepy stories, a dark-shaped craft was seen performing acrobatic maneuvers in the sky above the Berkshires that night. Others say they didn't just see the craft, but were taken aboard it. It's unclear exactly how long the phenomenon, there's Kevin's favorite word, phenomenon, lasted, but many who claim to have witnessed the Berkshire UFO described losing time, unable to account for an hour or so during the incident. I don't know. That's not strange. I lose a lot of time, especially in the middle of the night. I wake up and where did that time go? Okay. Everything got real calm, said Thomas Reed, one of the most well-known witnesses of the 1969 Berkshire UFO phenomenon. It was like being in the middle of a hurricane. There was like a barometric change in pressure. It was just like a dead silence. Then there was an eruption of crickets and frogs. They got very loud, and that was it. It was estimated that at least 40 residents, including children who are now adults still living in the Berkshire area, saw the alleged alien aircraft. Some of them reportedly called in to the local radio station to share the bizarre phenomenon that they had just seen. Kevin loves that word. He can't help himself. We had listeners call the radio station that evening, said David Isey, not I-C-I-Y, it's I-S-Y, Isey, general manager of the local radio station, WSBS. BS, okay, I get it. At the time, they didn't know it was a UFO. They just, called the station to say something bizarre has happened. The large number of simultaneous witness accounts during the UFO Berkshire incident has made it a distinct case among alleged sightings in recent decades. The witness accounts were so plentiful and compelling that the Great Barrington Historical Society decided to officially recognize the incident as the first off-world UFO case in U.S. history, some 45 years after it happened. Following the stunning recognition, witnesses formed the nonprofit UFO Monument Park, Inc. to build a monument in the area. Any of you realize there was a monument to a UFO sighting? The monument meant as a landmark to honor the alleged UFO encounter that residents saw in 1969 was erected by the group and signed by Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker. Even the governor signed off on it. Despite the significant eyewitness accounts of the event, some residents of the town have fought to keep scary stories of the alleged UFO incident under wraps. The monument was removed, oh crap, following contentious arguments between the group of witnesses that built the structure and local officials in 2019. God, it stayed there till 2019. Still, the eerie aftermath of the unexplained encounter stays with residents who bore witness that fateful night and who continue to share the creepy story to this day. So there you are, folks. Some info about the 1969 Berkshire, Massachusetts UFO incident witnessed by lots of people, some claiming to have been beamed aboard. What do you think about that story? Did I lose everybody? Did y'all go to sleep?
No, I'm here.
Where'd Kevin go?
I don't know where Kevin
He's
went.
muted again. Kevin, wake up.
Is he clicking himself out?
They caught him watching porn. Oh, what's going on, Kevin?
Once again, every time I click on that stupid media player, it kills my volume and mic here for some reason.
I think it's an alien UFO abduction.
Yeah, it's an unidentified farting orange.
Oh, well, I know. If it's farting, I know who did that.
UFO, unidentified farting orange.
In our case, it's a IFO.
IFO.
Identified farting object. So how you doing, Catherine?
Bite me.
Bite you.
She's the identified farting object. What does Kevin Kane have for us on a UFO incident story here tonight on this big super, what day is it?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I had something here. Let me see which one.
Oh, God.
Yeah, here's trying to decide which one to tell first here because I got several here. Here, I want to do this.
Sounds like he's about to tell a tall tale.
Because this was, I think, earlier this year. It's got a 2022 date on the article here.
Okay, he's going to go with a current story.
Okay. Sounds bizarre, but this woman is seriously scared of aliens after 9 UFO sightings. Do you believe in aliens? Do you think life not originated on Earth may occur outside the blue planet? Well, some people do. Now and then, people have come up with outrageous theories related to their so-called encounter with extraterrestrial life. Recently, a woman has claimed that she has seen several UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and now she is too scared to leave the house. As per a report by UK-based tabloid The Mirror, the 51-year-old Sasha Christie fears that she may be abducted by aliens. As quoted by the website, Sasha said, "It's very hard to explain my encounters as it's hard for me to believe what I've seen. I've spent my whole life trying to think of other scenarios of things that it could be, but the only conclusion is that it's other life forms and UFOs," she added. She added that looking at the sky, it scares me, as I don't know what I'm going to see next. The report added that Christie is a stay-at-home mother from Liverpool, Merseyside. She has seen lights flying across the sky as she claims that those were UFOs. She even had a joint encounter with some friends while on holiday in Wales in 1997. So this has been going on a while for her. Now she apparently suffers from PTSD. What is that? Sorry about that. This ad started playing in the middle of the screen. These dadgum junky things. Okay.
Got background music going here.
Now she apparently suffers from PTSD due to her experiences. For the unversed, post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that is basically triggered by a terrifying event, either after experiencing it or witnessing it. She shared one of the experiences that she recently had. As stated by the media website, she was on holiday when she allegedly saw the UFO. She was with her ex-partner and son in the small town of Glen Surrog. As quoted, she said, "I saw Steve outside looking at the sky. I ran out there to see what was wrong. He was pointing at these fluorescent lights in the sky that seemed to be getting bigger the closer they moved toward us. As the clouds were so slow, the shadows and shape of the UFO made it look like bright, rippling jellyfish in the sky. It was fascinating that when something reached out of the hedge, or that's when something reached out of the hedge and touched Louis's foot. I really could not believe it. I was in shock. Louis had told me that something had touched his foot, and I believed him, but I wanted to look at the lights more to understand what was going on. I stood there for another minute or so when I suddenly heard something running barefoot in the mud behind me. All of a sudden, it bumped into me as it ran past, and my chest exploded. Before I even realized it was happening, I was running back to the house in a panic, in complete hysterical blindness. I couldn't see where I was going. I just knew I needed to run," said Sasha. "The claims are quite intriguing, but should we believe them? What do you think about what she has to say?" And that's the end of that.
That's it.
That's it.
Now, what is that? Is that me or is that you?
Oh, I don't know.
It's one of y'all.
I don't know what is going on with these.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now I see it. That's no, that wasn't me. I don't know what that was. That's Kevin again over playing.
Well, I don't see anything on my screen.
Wasn't nothing to see. It was all hearing something.
Well, I mean, there should have been something popping up showing audio. I don't see anything. I got two screens up here.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Maybe it's this ghostly crib over here.
That's probably it.
Kevin, next show, I want you to do a spirit on it again. Something's telling me we need to hang like a piece of tissue paper or a tissue, tear it and like separate the plies in it and hang it up somewhere because the baby's weak and wants to kick it.
Oh, okay. So we'll hang it in the crib?
Yes.
Okay.
And see if we can get it to kick it.
Okay.
This is just something that's telling me.
Okay. Maybe we can do that next week.
Interesting note on this interesting subject we got going on here tonight. Aliens. Now, let's start with the Bigfoot community. There are those within the Bigfoot community meaning those that are believers in Bigfoot, researching Bigfoot, and have an interest in Bigfoot. There are those within that community that suggest that Bigfoot is actually an alien creature that was brought here, and that's the reason you can't see him, because he kind of can do that kind of stuff, being an alien. So there is that to give thought to as we go through these stories and give consideration to what are we dealing with out there. Are we the only ones? What do you think, Kevin? Do you think that we are the only beings in the universe?
I think that's kind of hard to fathom, that we're this whole great big forever universe. We're the only planet with living things on it.
Right.
I mean, at least I would think there was some kind of animals.
Real quick.
At least I would think there were some kind of animals, some kind of life forms, if not beings that can fly away in ships. But
I think that each planet is a test planet, and each universe is a test universe to see how
Oh.
each can connect, and it'll eventually happen.
Ah. And
There's something living on them somewhere, some kind of something.
I've always thought probably a lot of these UFOs we see are government craft being or military craft being tested that we don't know about. Some
Yeah.
kind of newfangled stuff.
Yeah, I posted a video the
All
other
right, I'm
day.
back. Okay. I guess I could.
It looked like a smoke ring, but I couldn't tell exactly what it was because it didn't really shape shift or anything. But it's on Abnormal Alabama Facebook page. It was very interesting.
Uh-huh.
Now, what do you think about this possibility? We are out, folks like Kevin and myself and other ones are out looking and thinking we're dealing with ghosts. What if we're dealing with aliens?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
You know, are you open-minded enough to think that that's a possibility? I think Kevin is.
I have thought that before. I've wondered that before. I don't know.
So it's aliens controlling my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really. I mean, if they can abduct people, there's a lot of people say they've been abducted, and when they bring them back to their current time, they're missing hours of time.
Personally, I think it's two different things, ghosts and aliens, but that's just me.
And the thing is, I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other.
Yeah.
General consensus is what Kevin just said. That's what majority believe, is that, you know, that ghosts are certainly distinct from aliens. But I would say this to add a little argument to Kevin's statement there is, of course, if you look at things like God and angels and spirits, they're all alien to us. They are not part of this earth, so they are creatures from the universe. If you want to be technical about it, God's an alien. You go back, and there was an author years ago that did a lot of research and came up with an Anunnaki. You familiar with Anunnaki?
Nope.
Okay. So this goes back to the ancient days of Summer. Summer was the earliest that we don't hear about, but the earliest recorded civilization on this planet. And of course, like most of where we're rooted from, it was in the Middle East around the area of Baghdad. And they found writings that suggested that the Anunnaki were aliens that came, and they kind of, I forget exactly how the story goes, so I can't articulate it very well. But this all ties in with a theory that aliens have already been here, that they do have some kind of control of the story. And I'm trying to remember parts of it. The reason that these aliens came to Earth and seeded us here, if you will, is because that they wanted some precious metal or something that was on this planet, and we were the robots or whatever that they put in control of harvesting this whatever from Earth. And then over time they got what they needed, but we're still here. So I don't know. And of course, you've probably heard of the reptilians.
Yep.
Okay, so those reptilians tie in with everything that we're talking about there. And I'm trying to remember the author's name. Part of his name is my name, Graham. I can't remember the rest of his name. But interesting reading, and you can even find some things about him on YouTube and whatnot. So there's a lot of theories that go about just that don't separate all the things that we're talking about. It integrates them together, that they're all connected together, from the spirit creatures to what we're calling aliens, all that. And if you look at the human body, there's indication that we have reptilian blood in us, because you do have a tailbone, for one thing. There's certain body parts that there's no known use for you to have those body parts. So anyway, just a little background as we go into aliens here. Is it just people visiting, or beings visiting us from another planet out in the universe? Or is it another dimension? we really can't answer those questions because as yet we've never really identified what a unidentified flying object is.
Ooh.
Okay, the guy that you were talking about is R. Graham Reynolds.
No, that's not him.
Not him?
No.
Or Graham Alexander.
No.
Alexander Graham Bell? No, that's a telephone guy.
Yeah, yep, that's the telephone guy.
Okay, let me spell the word right. What's his name? Go ahead with your story. I can interrupt when I find it.
Okay. Well, I got a story. It won't be too long. This is about close encounters of the chilling kind. This is from the Baltimore Sun.
I found it. Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock.
Graham Hancock. Okay.
And he wrote the book Fingerprints of the Gods.
Graham Hancock. He cocked his hand and wrote that book.
Well, I know what. I think he cocked more than his hand. Yeah. They went a little bit deeper than that. You know, who am I to say?
He put his Hancock in that book there and told his story. All right, this Baltimore Sun story looks interesting. Close encounters of the chilling kind. This has to do with another phenomenon tied to the UFO. Nightmares. Oh, there's the book cover, Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock.
And I have a story tonight, too.
All right, okay. I'll run with it. Run with it.
Well,
both of you. Let Kevin start with it. Finish where he started.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. The nightmares would not stop. The sudden, bizarre, unsettling nightmares. They were always the same and seemed so real. Leah was sitting in a booth in a small, empty room with gray walls. A monotonic voice behind her said, "Don't move or you might be hurt." She felt paralyzed. She heard clicking noises like an X-ray. Suddenly, she was lying on a table. A bright light shone in her eyes. She sensed people moving around, examining her. Then she was sitting up, facing short creatures so hideous she could not look at its face. A short creature. From a box, the strange being removed a shiny needle. At the tip was a silver marble. The creature moved closer toward Leah. At that point, she would jerk awake in her bed, terrified and drenched with sweat. Her screams would awaken her parents, but her mother, Leah recalls, would always admonish her. "It's a nightmare. Everybody has them. You shouldn't watch all that scary stuff on TV." Leah now believes it wasn't just a nightmare. She believes it was real. She is one of the people whose stories you might expect to see in a supermarket tabloid under the heading, "Humans Who Believe They've Been Abducted by Aliens." Leah is 25, lives in Prince George's County, works at a bank, and is engaged to be married. She is thin and has blue eyes, and in her words, average looking and average in every way. Knowing that most people react with scorn and ridicule at the mention of UFOs and extraterrestrial life, she asked that her name not appear in this story. "I used to think I belonged in a mental institute, to be honest with you," she says. "But I don't think anymore that I'm crazy. I go to school, I work full-time, I pay my bills like anybody else. I think other people think I'm crazy." The subject of abductions by space aliens is so far out, so utterly fantastic that most people, even with their wildest imaginations, cannot begin to fathom it. Many will not take it seriously. It's unbelievable, unthinkable. The subject is also deeply disturbing. These are not pleasant stories of people out raking leaves, suddenly beamed into a UFO, subjected to a little Cosmos comedy and sent back to their yards chuckling. These are chilling accounts of people who say they've been kidnapped, confined in spaceship examination rooms, probed and prodded and examined by aliens who seem primarily interested in sexually related activities. Their stories more resemble reports of rape than they do a heartwarming visit by ET. Around these alien abduction stories, an industry has been launched. It soars far beyond the tabloids. There are best-selling books, popular films, primetime shows. Mental health professionals gathered at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology last summer for a conference on abductions. In Maryland and across the country have blossomed support groups where people who believe they've been abducted can share their stories, away from the ears of those who might mock or exploit. And of course, there are the scientists, from the internationally known astronomer Carl Sagan to a Navy physicist from Maryland, and a plethora of researchers lining up on either side of the highly charged issue. What's really happening? No one knows, but one thing is clear: something has shattered Leah's and others' claims. Shattered their calm, secure existence on planet Earth. Whether the rest of us accept or reject their stories is irrelevant. We cannot assuage their fear. It's palpable. The torment is real. Leah's began when she was in 4th grade. She was outside her apartment in Prince George's County playing with her sister and other children. It was dusk and they heard a hum, a buzz, like a swarm of bees. They saw a disc-like object, wingless, silver gray, a row of lights along the edge, creep at treetop level over the apartment complex. It hovered above a parking lot between buildings and then drifted away. Leah and her sister ran inside to tell their parents. The girls even drew pictures. My father wanted to call somebody, Leah says, but my mother said no. We'd made it up, but all of us saw it. We talked about it for days at school. Shortly after that, Leah says, the recurring nightmare began. She dreamed it on and off for a decade, from when she was 10 until about 20 years of age. Dreams are only part of her story. When she was 12 or 13, she and her sister, who is 2 years younger, were staying at their grandparents' house in St. Mary's County. They were in separate beds in the same room when a ball of lightning, as Leah describes it, passed through a window and curtain into the room. About the size of a tennis ball, it glided between the beds, bounced off a door, and vanished. A couple of seconds later, another lightning ball did the same thing, and then another. Leah says there might have been 20 in all. She and her sister screamed. 5 other people were in the house, but no one heard them. Leah finally escaped into the hallway, and her next memory is of waking up in bed the next morning. None of this made sense. She says her sister remembers the balls of light as well as the UFO over the apartment building years before. But her sister, Leah says, won't talk about it with strangers. For a long time afterward, Leah feared she was losing her mind. But then 5 years ago, she and a friend were at a mall outside a bookstore. Leah spotted a display of books, the covers of which featured a drawing of a grotesque creature with big, black, almond-shaped eyes. The book was Communion, the writer Whitley Strieber's account of his abduction by aliens. Leah pointed at the drawing and screamed, oh my God, that's them, that's them. They were the creatures in her nightmare. That's when it registered, Leah says. That's when I said, wait a minute, something's going on here. It was the first she had heard of abductions by space creatures. She read the book and then a couple of others on the subject and became convinced that the terrifying events, the nightmares, the night of the lights, perhaps other unexplained events as well, had been abductions. And Leah's not alone. Some researchers estimate that thousands, if not millions, of humans have been abducted and studied by aliens. They base that estimate on a 1991 survey of 5,947 Americans by the Roper Polling Organization. The survey was commissioned by believers in the abduction phenomenon. The survey asked 11 questions, including, have you ever woke up paralyzed and sensing a strange presence in the room? Have you ever lost an hour or more you can't account for? Have you ever felt as if you were flying? Have you ever seen balls of light in your room? Have you ever found scars on your body you could not explain? 2% of the respondents answered yes to at least 4 of those questions. From these results, the poll sponsors concluded that 2% of adult Americans may have been abducted by aliens. This subject is as far out as it gets. It seems just too crazy, too out of question. The skeptics say, this could not be happening, therefore it's not happening. But you have to go where the evidence takes you, even though kicking and screaming while en route. Bud Hopkins, another of the poll sponsors, says he has interviewed witnesses and has found physical evidence such as unexplained body scars and mysterious burn marks on lawns where spaceships may have landed. But primarily, he and other researchers rely on the abduction stories told by people of different races, all ages, both sexes, police officers, psychiatrists, scientists, lawyers, entertainers, nurses, journalists, farmers, an army colonel, a golf pro. Mr. Hopkins, who is a painter and sculptor in New York City, became interested in aliens after seeing a UFO in 1964. 11 years later, a 72-year-old friend told him of watching a spaceship land in New York Park and of watching about 10 alien passengers take soil samples. Mr. Hopkins found others willing to tell their stories, and since the mid-1970s, he has been at the forefront of abduction research. He has studied more than 400 cases and written 2 popular books, Missing Time and Intruders, from his interviews with people who claim sometimes, while under hypnosis, to have been abducted. Most abductees report being taken first as children, when a small implant, which could be remembered as a marble at the tip of a needle, is placed deep into the ear or nose, the researchers say. The implant's function is unknown, but these researchers say it might serve as a locator so the person can be abducted again later. The aliens described in the stories are small, no more than 4 feet tall, and extremely thin. They are light-colored, often gray. Their heads are oversized, yet their mouths and noses are tiny. They have no ears or hair. Their eyes are large and black. Nearly all stories involve spaceships parking on the ground or floating in the air. The victims are examined in a room resembling a hospital operating room. The methodical creatures use a variety of devices to examine humans from head to toe, occasionally leaving scars. But the aliens, it seems, reserve special interest for the human sexual organs. Here is where the story, if not already, will almost certainly strain your credulity to the breaking point, Mr. Hopkins wrote in Intruders. Through interviews with people who report abduction stories, Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Jacobs came to believe these aliens are, and have for several decades, been conducting some sort of breeding experiment with human beings. This involves the taking of sperm and egg samples, the implanting of a genetically altered embryo into women, the extraction of the fetus, and finally the external incubation of the fetus. Women have sometimes reported they were presented hybrid babies and expected to nurture, even breastfeed them. It's very hard to think of this as some wonderful new adventure, Mr. Hopkins says. Maybe an extraterrestrial species is introducing a desirable human characteristic into its own evolutionary cycle, say the researchers. Maybe it's reducing the difference between its species and ours. Maybe it's seeding another planet, or maybe it has a plan completely beyond the comprehension and imagination of the human brain. Yeah, right, say the skeptics. The astronomer Carl Sagan says that he is open-minded to the prospect of intelligent beings living in space, but he does not believe they're sneaking into bedrooms and tormenting earthlings. Tell me, he says, which is more plausible? We're victims of a massive invasion of alien sexual abusers, or people are seeing things that just aren't there. Although abduction claims began surfacing nearly half a century ago, not one shred of indisputable physical evidence has surfaced. says Mr. Hagen, who recently wrote an article for Parade magazine debunking those claims. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, he says. Somebody telling a story is not evidence. Even many people telling the same story is not good enough. They're people, that's the point, and people intrinsically have certain fallibilities. Abduction accounts may be something about how the brain works or how people can be deluded or even how religions begin, he says from his office at Cornell University. But they say nothing, he says, about skinny, large-eyed aliens kidnapping humans. There's a better chance of your getting hit on the head by one of Santa's reindeer than of you being abducted, says Philip Klass, a retired senior editor and now contributing editor at Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine. I will say, slightly tongue-in-cheek, there's better evidence of the existence of mermaids and Irish leprechauns. Mr. Klass, who lives in Washington, says he's tried to verify UFO cases for nearly 30 years and not found a credible one. In his 1989 book, UFO Abductions, A Dangerous Game, Mr. Klass contended that people who believe they've been abducted by aliens need treatment by qualified psychotherapists, not UFO cult gurus, as he calls them. Robert Baker, a retired professor of psychology at the University of Kentucky, has written derisively about abduction stories. He says some are simply fabrications or the recounting of stories gleaned from books or movies, while others are products of psychological disorders. The stories may be repressed memories of childhood sexual or physical abuse surfacing in disguised form, he says. Or they may be the type of vivid, realistic dreams occurring as a person falls asleep or wakes up. And he says some people who believe they've been abducted may be fantasy prone or psychologically disturbed. Anyway, Dr. Baker says, if this phenomena were as common as Hopkins and Jacobs would have us believe, the sky would be filled with spacecraft abducting people back and forth. UFOs would be stacked up like aircraft coming in at O'Hare. The believers and skeptics counter each other point by point. Both sides publish newsletters buttressing their claims, but both produce mental health specialists who pronounce judgment and the sanity of victims. But in the end, what are we left with? The stories. So back to Leah. Leah started out thinking she was dreaming or hallucinating. After coming to believe she had been abducted, she contacted a representative of the Mutual UFO Network, an international group interested in UFOs. She was referred to Bob Oshler, a former National Aeronautics and Space Administration mission specialist who lives in Edgewater in Anne Arundel County. Mr. Oshler, who became interested in UFOs as a boy, is intrigued with the technology of crafts from outer space. How do they get here from there? For the past 2 years, he has researched UFO sightings full time. On his front door is a brass plaque that reads, UFOs are real. He invited Leah to his home. After a couple of meetings, he suggested she undergo hypnosis. Some abductees remember only snippets of their experience, but find they can recall more during hypnosis. So they hypnotized Leah in Mr. Oshler's home, but Leah says few hidden memories emerged. Mr. Oshler is starting a support group for the abductees, one of dozens forming across the country, he says. About 30 people, including Leah, have signed up. At the organizational meeting of Mr. Oshler's support group, Dr. McCabe told the participants, this subject is so weird, so misunderstood. All we can do is hold your hand and make you realize you're not alone. That would be a relief to Leah. Strange things continue to happen to her. Not long ago, she says she was visiting friends in West Virginia mountains. She was floated out of the house, taken aboard a spaceship, and handed a baby. It was a boy with leathery skin, a thin neck, an oversized head with patches of red hair, huge eyes that she says weren't real coal black like those of the adult aliens. They were blue. I don't know why. I know it sounds strange, Leah says, but as soon as I held him in my arms, I knew he was mine. I felt like I was his mother. She rocked him and talked quietly to him, she says, as several aliens watched. Leah hesitates and says almost apologetically, I know this does not make any sense. Even though she has trouble sleeping and often feels she's being watched, she says she has kind of gotten used to the idea of being abducted. I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it as far as I can see, she says. If they were going to hurt me, I think they would have done it a long time ago. She knows what the skeptics say, but she says they don't give people enough credit for knowing the difference between what's actually happened to them and what they might have imagined. Leah says she was never abused as a child. She says she has no reason to make up a story so crazy and bizarre. Why does she think the aliens chose her? I have no idea, she says. I don't know who they are, where they're from, or what they're doing. I just want people to understand this is real. This is happening. It's out there, and you're going to have to accept it sooner or later. Is she absolutely sure that her torment has been caused by aliens? There's no doubt in my mind, she says, and I know they'll be back. Phew.
Well, I had, and I usually share this, and I'm going to share it one more time.
Yeah, and Catherine had a story too.
What?
Catherine had a story too, she said.
Okay. Well, anyway, I want to show you what the aliens did to me. I want you to watch this carefully. You watching? Watch.
Uh-huh.
Watch. Look at that. The aliens. Look.
Look at him.
Look. And there's nothing.
Look at Merlin doing his magic.
That was because of aliens, because I had to. Go ahead, Catherine, and I'll tell my alien abduction story.
I really can't see. Did you not get my message?
Did you send a message? Oh, you wanted me to tell it. That's
yes,
right. She poked her eye with my floating pen. A lot of people have heard this story, but I will share my personal story real quick and a condensed version of it, because I wasn't really abducted, but I had an encounter, and I had an encounter with the men in black. I think Kevin's probably heard this story before.
Yes, I have.
This happened up in Odenville, Alabama, up on Simmons Mountain. I lived up there in a cabin with my German Shepherd dog. And anyway, I'd gone to bed, and I was waken up by a pounding at my door. Now I'm going to abbreviate this. I had an encounter 2 or 3 times with some strange people that had nothing to do with the UFO. But ultimately, the last visit I got, because I could not sleep for all this stuff going on my property, I was finally woken up by some men in suits. The typical, what you see is presented to the men in black, plain suits and plain Chevrolet Caprice automobiles type things. And my driveway was lined with a half a dozen of these cars, and there were at least a dozen, if not more, of these guys. I stepped out on the front deck, and immediately at a leading edge from over the roof of my deck roof, I saw the huge oval shape of a leading edge of a craft. It was kind of glowing, and it was so huge I could only see the leading edge of it. And there were 2 what were the black military helicopters buzzing around it, but they were very small in comparison to this huge craft. I barely got a look at it until I found myself being thrown face down on my deck and a knee in my back. And then I felt a sharp something go into my neck. And then the next thing I know, I woke up in my bed hours later and still feeling the prick in my neck. So there's more to that story than that, but that's my brief encounter, not an abduction story, but clearly it's been a good 15 years ago, and it's still very, very vivid, and no explanation can I give other than what I just told you. So now let's go back even further in time and let's talk about a story that a lot, if you're a UFO person that's paid attention to UFO stories, this happened back in 1973, the very year that I graduated from high school. It happened down in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and which now is, of course, a long time ago. But it was an event that this guy experienced. And I'm going to just read an update on this story because he has gone public with his story. Calvin Parker Jr. and Charles Hickson were two of the abductees, or two of the individuals that witnessed and abducted by this spacecraft. It was an event he had been reluctant to speak about, yet it shaped much of his life. Calvin Parker, who now lives in Moss Point, Mississippi, along with his friend Charles Hickson, claimed they were abducted by aliens while fishing on the Pascagoula River, and now Parker has written a book he hopes will set the record straight. Pascagoula, the closest encounter, my story, was recently published. This is going back 2018. It contains the first full account of the event given by Parker, along with how it affected his life. It includes photos, documents, newspaper articles written throughout the years. It also marks the first time a transcription of a hypnosis session with Parker had been published. You can find that in that book. Parker hopes it will clear the air. It was October 11th, 1973, Parker said. We'd gotten off work that day, and a friend of mine, he and I went fishing. The old abandoned shipyard. They had a little pier out front, and we were on that pier. I'm going to guess it was about 6 o'clock in the evening. It had just started getting dark, but it was kind of a bright moon. Parker said he noticed a blue light reflecting off the water, and his initial thought was law enforcement officers had arrived to tell the two fishermen they needed to leave the property. However, when Parker looked up, he realized the light was coming from a craft like nothing he had ever seen before. A big light coming out of the clouds, Parker said. It was a blinding light. It was hard to tell with the light so bright, but it looked like it was shaped like a football. I would say, just estimating, it was about 80 feet. It made very little sound. It was just a little hissing noise. And I want to add that the shape I saw was not quite football shaped, but close. Then the situation became more surreal. Parker said 3 legless creatures floated from the craft. One had no neck with gray wrinkled skin. Another had a neck and appeared more feminine. And Parker described their hands as being shaped like mittens or crab claws. When one of the creatures put one of its claws around him, Parker said he was terrified, but then another feeling came over his body. I think they injected us with something to calm us down. I was kind of numb and went along with the program. Parker said the creatures floated he and Hickson into the craft and performed physical examinations on the two. Then they were taken back to the bank of the river. Parker said he didn't want to tell anyone what happened, but Hickson convinced him otherwise, and the two contacted Keesler Air Force Base, but were told they should call local authorities. So they contacted the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, and according to Parker, the two passed sobriety tests as well as polygraph test. Parker said he also passed a voice stress test. The ordeal seemed like it was over, but for Parker, it was just beginning. The news spread worldwide, and according to news reports, Hickson didn't shy away from the attention. Parker, on the other hand, did not want any attention. In the years that followed, he said he changed jobs and relocated to other towns when people realized who he was. It was just something he did not want to discuss. I've been going through this 45 years this October. Remember, this is 2018. Parker said, I never talked about it, nor wanted to talk about it. I have very few friends, but they're true friends. They never asked about it, and I never talked about it. My family never talks about it. But after decades of largely not discussing the event, Parker began to change his mind after attending a funeral where he came into contact with people he had not seen in many years, and he felt they focused more attention on him than they did the deceased. I signed the registry at the funeral, and people recognized the name, Parker said. Out of respect for the family, I just left. My wife told me on the way home, you need to write about it. Parker considered what happened at the funeral, the years of speculation about what happened that night on the river, and his health. He eventually agreed. I felt the need. I felt like everyone deserved an explanation, Parker said. Everyone has an expiration date, and I wanted to get this out before I die. I've had some near death experiences and I'm in bad health, and I just wanted to do it. For Parker, the book is likely a weight lifted off his shoulders. For friends and family and others interested in his side of the story, it should be enlightening. However, Parker said there are some questions that never may be answered. I catch myself going fishing at night and look up and wonder where they came from, how far did they travel, and why they had to get me. You can find Parker's book on Amazon.com. It's a story that's been out there for a lot of years, and as of about 4 years ago, Parker finally released his story in the form of a book, and that book is called Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story, by Calvin Parker of Moss Point, Mississippi. And there is the rest of that story. And now, Kevin, we're going to throw the ball back into your court.
And was that Catherine's story, or did she still want to
That's
tell?
the one. That's the one.
Okay.
She wanted me to share it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got one here, kind of a little bit shorter, definitely shorter than the last one.
Oh,
So
I didn't know if I need to take a nap or something.
Yeah. It's about an encounter abroad by Miss Judith Grimes.
I've tasted a lot of broads in my time, but I never had.
This is a family story. Now, listen to that at the beginning. This is a family story, not a broad.
Oh, families. Okay. Well, the families start with a man catching a broad.
Yeah. Miss Grimes says, this is a family story I've heard only twice. I can't remember how it was brought up the first time, but the explanation was very vague. So I asked again a few months later when the family had come together at the cottage during summer. They seemed kind of iffy talking about it, but provided more details. They live in Ukraine, but took a trip to Turkey sometime in the 1990s. They had rented a little cottage there that was far enough into the countryside to be considered fairly remote. Long story short, one evening the dog was absolutely crazy, barking viciously and just overall behaving erratically. One of them, my grandma's brother, I believe, went outside to check what was going on and saw what they can only describe as a UFO nearing the cottage. Pretty high up in the sky, but lowering a bit as it came closer. He called for the rest of the family to come and see, and to this day, they can still confirm what they saw. Well, the ones that are still alive, at least, can confirm what they saw. They said it was triangle shaped and had 3 lights, one in each corner. When it got seriously close to the house, they really began to panic and ran back inside. They were the very walls were shaking, dishes were breaking from the force of the vibrations going throughout the walls and the floor, and the dogs outside were barking louder than ever. The thing hovered over the cottage for several minutes before ascending back up and disappearing. These are all people who are very rational and they hate discussions regarding the supernatural. So I have no doubt in my mind that they were telling the truth. And that's the end of that little story. Want me to share another one?
Yeah, keep on rolling there, Ro.
Okay. This other one, that's really interesting. This is about the time the aliens crashed a sleepover.
Crashed. Oh.
Yeah, crashed a sleepover. When I was about 12, my best friends and I used to sleep out on my friend's trampoline in his yard in the summer. We would gather our bed stuff and bounce around till we got tired, then eventually lay down and go to sleep. One evening, four of us were laying on the trampoline talking when we noticed that there's something floating over the woods nearby. You couldn't see it clearly, just that it blocked the stars out as it slowly moved. It was just a little higher than the treetops and completely silent. We were just some dumb kids, so we just watched it. Slowly, it drifted until it was directly over top of us. Then suddenly, there was this light that I cannot describe. It was more than blindingly brilliant. It was disorientingly, cripplingly bright, like it shone down into you. The next thing I remember, we were all standing inside my friend's house, looking out his sliding glass back door at the object still hovering there, and then it glided away. We were all spooked, but we decided to go back out to go to bed on the trampoline. We're laying there for a while, and the next thing we know, it comes back again and does the exact same thing. Again, we find ourselves inside looking out the back door. Beyond all reason, we go back outside to bed again. Same thing happens again. We finally decided to sleep inside with the lights on. My friends and I lost touch as we grew up, but when I was 18, I heard one of them was in town. I ran into him at a party one night and pulled him to the side to ask him about that night, as it had bothered me for some time. His response has shaken me to this day. I cannot describe his reaction sufficiently. He looked at the ground and said, "I don't want to talk about it." I was kind of shocked by his response, so I didn't know what to say. He got up and walked out, and I stayed sitting there thinking about what just happened. I got up after a minute to go see if I could find him, but he had left immediately after. That was it. Haven't seen him or the others, but his response was enough to let me know something strange definitely went down that night. I don't know if I want to remember. There you go.
So, am I on there? Am I live?
Yes, you're alive. No, you're off and dead.
Some of you people may not be old enough to personally know this, but maybe you've heard that once upon a time in my lifetime, we called them little green men.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered where that phenomenon came from? The little green men?
I figure from them 50 sci-fi movies and comics.
Well, actually, it began on a Kentucky farm where 11 witnesses arrived at the Hopkinsville police station, and they were genuinely terror-struck. And the little green men, they said, were of a height of about 2.5 inches to 3.5 feet. Could not indicate what sex they were. The heads were bald, same color as the body, chin almost at a point. The ears were floppy, large, extended considerably above the crown of the head, and pointed at the top, kind of like a bat, whatever, like wrinkled leather, extended out from the side of the head somewhat. The mouth and upper lip was tucked under the lower lip, and the shoulders sloped sharply, and there was no neck. The arms were long and almost touched the ground, the legs slim and stick-like, the body powerfully built to the waist. The nose saw a cone-like nose tapering to a point with a ball on the end of it. So why are aliens so depicted as little green men with bulbous heads and oversized eyes? The mythology began in part on the night of August 21, 1955, when yours truly was all of 1 year old, when a large extended farm family called the Suttons arrived breathlessly at the Hopkinsville police station in southwestern Kentucky. Their story of a terrifying siege by otherworldly beings would become one of the most detailed and baffling accounts of an alien close encounter on record. Notable for the large number of witnesses, nearly a dozen, the duration of the encounter, several hours, and the close proximity between the witnesses and creatures, sometimes just a few feet away. The incident quickly became regional and even national news. The alleged encounter occurred on the Sutton's farm in the tiny rural hamlet of Kelly, Kentucky, where the family lived in an unpainted 3-room house without running water, telephone, radio, TV, or books. Of all the details of the story, the UFO landing and the appearance of small alien creatures, one fact was indisputable. When the 8 adults and 3 children arrived at the nearby Hopkinsville police station at 11 p.m., they were indeed genuinely terror-struck. These aren't the kind of people who normally run to the police for help, Police Chief Russell Greenwell later told investigators. What they do is reach for their guns. Yet here they were, women and children, hysterical, and one man with a pulse of 140 beats per minute, measured by an investigator. Small metallic humanoids, impervious to bullets, is what they began to describe. According to the accounts given to the police, at about 7 p.m. on the hot Sunday evening, Sutton family friend Billy Ray Taylor was fetching water from the backyard well when he saw a silvery object, a real bright, with an exhaust all the colors of the rainbow. Well, it is Pride Month. Oh, I'm sorry. As he later recounted, it came silently toward the house, passed over it, stopped in the air, and then dropped straight to the ground. Taylor, 21, and his 18-year-old wife had come from Pennsylvania to visit Lucky Sutton, with whom he had worked on Traveling Carnival. The Suttons, 50-year-old widow and matriarch Glennie Langford, her 2 older sons and their wives, a brother-in-law, and the widow's 3 younger children, 12, 10, and 7, didn't take Billy Ray seriously, laughing off his UFO account. An hour later, alerted by the dog's incessant barking, Lucky and Billy Ray went to the back door and made out a strange glow, in the midst of which they spied a small humanoid creature, about 3.5 feet tall. It had an oversized head, almost perfectly round. Its arms extended almost to the ground. Its hands had talons, and its oversized eyes glowed with a yellowish light. The body gave off an eerie shimmer in the light of the night's new moon, they said, as if it were made of silver metal. Terrified, the 2 men grabbed a 20-gauge shotgun and a .22 rifle and fired at the little man, its hands now raised as if held up at gunpoint as it came toward the back door. They reported that it then did a flip, scrambled upright, and fled in the darkness. Shortly after, the men saw a similar creature appear in a side window and fired through the window screen. Still impervious to bullets, the little man again flipped, then disappeared. I went out in the hallway and crouched down next to Billy when I saw one approaching the door, Ms. Langford told Isabel Davis, author of the extensive report called Close Encounter at Kelly and Others of 1955. It looked like a 5-gallon gasoline can with a head on top and small legs. It was a shimmering bright metal like on my refrigerator. The drama escalated when Taylor stepped outside under the small overhanging roof, and those behind him saw a claw-like hand reach down and touch his hair. The group screamed and pulled Taylor back while Lucky shot above the overhang and then at another similar creature in a nearby tree. It floated to the ground and then scurried into the woods. The Suttons moved inside and spent several hours listening for movements, hearing mostly occasional scratches on the roof. Finally, 11 p.m., the whole group ran for the cars and hightailed it to the Hopkinsville police station at top speed. After the local police chief came for backup, his team was joined at the Sutton farm by state police, military police from nearby Fort Campbell, and a photographer from the Kentucky New Era. There, investigators found shell casings from gunshots, but no other evidence. Neither could they find proof of heavy drinking. According to the Sutton matriarch, liquor was not allowed in the farmhouse. Once the police and others left, though, the creatures returned between 2:30 a.m. and daybreak. Mrs. Langford says she saw one glowing repeatedly by her bedside window, its claw-like hand on the screen. In the following days, after radio stations and newspapers, including the New York Times, reported the incident, hundreds of curiosity seekers descended on the farm, often ridiculing the Suttons as ignorant or fraudulent. When no trespassing signs proved useless at discouraging them, the family tried charging admission. 50 cents for entering the grounds, $1 for information, $10 for taking pictures. After that, skeptics blasted them as fortune-seeking fabulists. As the Kelly story spread into the world, it took on a life of its own. The number of little men grew to a dozen or more. A few years later, the little metallic men were conflated with an Eastern Kentucky woman's report of a flying saucer and a 6-foot-tall man in green, helping launch the myth of the little green men. The day after the incident, police investigators returned to the farmhouse, searching for evidence of a saucer landing, footprints, blood trails, or scratch marks on the roof. They found nothing. Bud Ledwith, a local radio station employee, interviewed the adult witnesses and made drawings based on their accounts. According to Davis, he was impressed by their remarkable specificity and consistency, even though the men were away from the farmhouse all day, unable to coordinate with others. While the incident eventually attracted the attention of the Air Force UFO investigation program, Project Blue Book, documents suggest that its team never officially pursued the matter beyond checking in with the Fort Campbell counterparts who had been briefly at the scene the first night. One of the most thorough investigations of the Kelly incident was undertaken in 1956 by ufologist Isabel Davis and published several decades later by the Center of UFO Studies, a group founded by the astronomer Dr. J. Allen Hynek, Project Blue Book civilian investigator. Her nearly 200-page report, co-written with Ted Blocher, includes detailed maps, drawings, documentary records, summaries of similar accounts around the world, and interviews with several Sutton family members and police investigators. Davis summarized the latter's concern about the lack of physical evidence, but to her reckoning, none of the possible explanations, a deliberate hoax, a publicity play, group hallucinations, made sense. While questions rose about whether the young men were exaggerating, possibly fueled by hidden stores of liquor, Davis's strong impression after meeting Mrs. Langford was one of a sober, no-nonsense matriarch who abhorred the limelight and had no reason to lie. None of the witnesses, Davis noted, had any history of making preposterous allegations. In 2006, Joe Nickel, senior research fellow of the International Committee for Skeptical Inquiry and a self-styled paranormal investigator, reviewed the accumulated evidence in an article entitled Siege of the Little Green Men. In 1955, Kelly, Kentucky incident. In it, he raised suspicion about what he called Billy Taylor's embroidered testimony. He matched Taylor's UFO sighting with similar reports from that day, which suggested a small meteor in the vicinity. As for the little men, Nickel floated an explanation used for other alien encounter stories, owls, in particular the great horned owl, aka the hoot owl, has long wings that could be mistaken for arms, along with talons, yellow eyes, long ears, rounded head that might also match the little men description. As for their metallic shine, Nichols suggests they could have easily been reflecting moonlight. But while hoot owls are known to be active at dusk and extremely aggressive when defending their nest, some investigators question characterizations of the creature as hostile. To some, their behavior that night in Kelly appeared to be simply curious. So there is another story from the 50s, in fact, that was witnessed by a good dozen people.
Oh.
Ooh.
Shall I tell another one here?
Please.
There's a couple of short ones here. The one's in Florida, another one's in New Brunswick. About 2 years ago, I was in Naples, Florida with my friend. We were on the porch having a smoke around 11 p.m. I was leaning on the railing when what I thought was a plane in the distance turned toward us. It was flying so low that the front lights blinded us. My friend scrambled for his phone, which turned out to be dead, and I, fearing I would miss it, did not want to run inside to grab my phone. Though the craft was steadily gliding, it was all happening so fast. As the object got closer, we noticed it was a huge black triangle with 3 huge circular lights on the bottom. Here's the triangle thing again. It was so close, just above the trees right in front of the building, and it was so silent. The only thing making any sound was the trees rustling below the craft. Then the huge black triangle turned on a dime right in front of us and disappeared over the tops of the buildings. I would not have believed what I saw if I didn't see it with someone else. And then this other story from New Brunswick. This is a story of my father's that happened in 1982 while my father was stationed on a military base in New Brunswick. One night, my father's best friend and his girlfriend left just after dark to see Tron, the movie Tron, at the movie theater. About an hour later, the friend and his girlfriend were back on the base. The car pulled in, and my father immediately noticed that it was damaged pretty badly and covered in several different colors of paint. My father asked them what happened, why they had not gone to the movie. They brushed him off and went to bed. A few days later, my father got his friend to tell him what had happened. They were driving along a stretch of highway, and they noticed lights coming from over a hill just ahead, where no lights should be because there was nothing around for miles. Just at the base of that hill was a parking lot for a park. A bunch of cars were pulling into the parking lot to investigate the lights, so my father's friend pulled in too. Everyone got out of their cars and were about to start hiking to the top of the hill when a large disc with flashing lights rose above the hill's peak and emitted a sound, a loud, strange sound. Several cars got banged up and everyone's panicked to get away, thus the transfer of paint. My father's friends drove back to the base as fast as possible. A few days later, men in black suits, showed up on the base looking for people. They talked to my father's friend and then sent him on his way. My father asked him what the men wanted to see him for. The men told the friend that he better shut up, say nothing about anything that happened if he wanted to keep his military career. There's a pesky men in black again.
Yeah, it's a big story about the men's in black there, and I had my own personal experience about the men's in black.
They've shown up to the UFOs, and even when Mothman happened, they showed up around that Point Pleasant.
Well, you know, Catherine made a suggestion, by the way, Kevin, about next week's show. Well, we're taking just a moment here. But everybody, whether they believe them or not, kind of enjoys a good conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So she suggested that we look up and talk about a bunch of conspiracy theories and kind of rate them.
Theories.
Huh?
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah, theories, and kind of rate them as to do you believe it? How much credence would you put in that one? Would do like a 1 to 5 scale or a 1 to 10 scale? Like, well, so that'd be interesting. UFOs have a lot of conspiracy theories in them, as we have learned in some of these stories. Some people just out debunk them offhand. Other people say, well, let me dig into this. The fascinating thing about it is there's so many reports. I have zero doubt as to there being UFOs, meaning unidentified flying objects. I have had UFO experiences and I could not identify them. I know what a plane looks like. I know what a helicopter. I mean, even at night, there's certain lights on these craft that these UFOs don't have, certain flight patterns and so forth. So the conspiracy theories on this subject to me comes into play as to what are they? It's all guess and speculation. What's out your window back there, Kevin?
What's out my window? Oh, ain't nothing out my window. Oh, alien. I think a lot of these UFOs are military craft that we don't know about that they're testing.
Well,
get a big laugh out of
there's
us.
a possibility, and then that
Crop circles.
Bob Lazar, you may have heard of.
Bob Bizarre.
Yeah, Lazar.
Is he bizarre? Oh, Lazar. I thought you said bizarre.
Yeah, Lazar, some would say, is bizarre. He actually worked at Area 51 at one time. Some of these guys, like him, state emphatically that we have what's the term they use? Stolen a lot of our technology from UFOs. Reverse engineered is what they call it. Reverse engineered.
Yeah.
So
cell phones.
If you think back in the history of the human, we lived without much advancement in technology for thousands of years, and then all of a sudden, within the last 200 years, things just kind of mushroomed out. Look how fast this stuff went. And some people would suggest that, wow, this knowledge had to come from somewhere. Why did man live for tens of thousands of years and not make much advancement? Then all of a sudden, in the 20th and 21st centuries, we're out the roof of this stuff. Where did that come from? We didn't have all this, and all of a sudden, bam, it's here. In my religious days, there were some in Christianity that suggested that the latter days were here, and we got this information from Satan trying to distract us and blah, blah, blah.
Well, Satan is
a wily creature,
a deceptor, a father of deception.
Yeah, TikTok is of the devil.
TikTok.
YouTube.
TikTok's just something fun.
Anyway, bottom line is that there's all kind of interesting things in the conspiracy theories. So I think you'd like that idea for next week.
Yeah, I always thought, when I was a kid, I had my own little conspiracy theory. What if we're not? What if this life we're living, all of us here together living, isn't really life? Maybe we're all laying on tables in a lab somewhere asleep, and these ghosts and aliens we think we're seeing are the doctors in our sleep coming in and probing us and talking to us. And
that's a good theory right there.
And
that's why Kevin looks so pale right now. He's
that's why I wear goofy hats.
Yeah.
Well, I think
all those dolls he collects is hospital staff.
I believe that you live this life, and when you pass on, you go to sleep, and you dream, and you're actually living your dream again of all your happy times.
Yeah, I think this is the dream now.
It could possibly be part of the dream.
I think that you're going to, at death, you wake up.
Well, I'm pinching myself. I ain't waking up.
Yeah, but you're only pinching yourself in your dreams, so you're not really pinching yourself. You're pinching your dream self.
I slapping my dream self.
Yeah, that's it.
Wake up.
It could
Yeah.
be a dream.
You're gonna wake up when he dies and realize that he does not have a house full of dogs.
You know, Edgar Allan Poe once asked, "Is all that we see or seen but a dream within a dream?"
That's it. It's a dream within a dream. And that's why you shouldn't take it all seriously. You shouldn't get bent out of shape, but you just say, I'm dreaming. It's a dream. I'm dreaming.
You know, Kevin, you could
Yeah, I know, Kevin,
in another life, you could be have a billion wives, and those could be you could have a billion children.
Kevin can't even get one wife. You talking about having a billion lives?
Well, you know,
talking about a harem, a procol harem here going on.
Oh man, no,
yes, your old harem.
Now Kevin wants to be a Mormon.
And he wound up with a bunch of children. Those could be all his children's in other lives.
Kevin's going to trade in his King James Bible for the Book of Mormon.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but think of all those wives you get.
I mean, I'm just thinking, you know.
You're just thinking, you know.
Well, there you go.
All that many wives nagging at me.
The reality is, even in our nightmare, dreamlike state, we have theories. And are we going to wake up? Does death come and you wake up? And that's, you know, it's like, that's why these little dolls, he tries these EVPs and spirit box sessions. And really what they're saying is, you're asleep, Kevin. Wake up, Kevin. You're asleep, Kevin.
You know, I dream this nightmare often.
You're a hologram.
Oh.
You can take your hand and you can put it right through your face. Try it.
Look at you being swift there. Let's get the dummy to punch himself.
Yeah. Kevin, punch bag. So we got a show planned for next week now, conspiracy theories, and they can go all things we just touched on can be part of the conspiracy theories. Was Lee Harvey Oswald the lone shooter for the JFK assassination?
Who really pulled the trigger on JFK?
I don't know.
Bullet theory.
I even want to do some recent ones too.
Yeah, like was the 9/11 an inside job?
And is Elvis really flipping burgers today at a Burger King somewhere out on Route 66?
No, he's on retirement now. He's just eating the burgers. Tupac is not dead either. Tupac and Marilyn Monroe and Elvis are all at a diner with JFK.
I brought up an interesting one a few weeks ago. Remember? How about is Polygrip really been gay?
Oh, well, I don't know. Well, why don't you ask him?
Why don't you ask?
You brought it up. And the old conspiracy thing is that does the chewing gum really lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight?
Does a bear really shit in the forest and nobody hear? How's that go? If a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear?
Yeah, and let's see. And
can I give a shout out about something real quick?
Does Catherine's farts really stink?
Like roses. Okay.
All
right.
Roses.
All right, listen to me now. Okay, I want to give a shout out real quick to the person in the green Ford F-150 extended cab pickup truck this afternoon. I want to say thank you. You bought our lunch in line, and I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, one of those drive-through Samaritans.
Yes, Samaritans.
Yeah, I've heard
it made me smile.
And not much makes her smile, trust me.
Wow.
Man, well, we have made it through about another night of the peculiar, abnormal, weird, and all the above. Next week, we've designed a special show about theories, conspiracy. What is it, a conspiracy theory?
We didn't do any promo, any
I know.
plug.
Go ahead. We got about 5 minutes or so, the promo there.
Yeah.
Talk about all them books you read there, brother.
MyHauntedDolls.com. Shop, shop, shop. Got supernatural novels, Crimson the Blood Painting. I got nonfiction books about my haunted items. Where'd it go? Come on, there we go. My Haunted Collection, The Dark Side. That's a scarier one there. And my newest book, some horror stories I made up.
Some horrible stories.
Dark Awakening and Other Tales for a Midnight Hour. And there's a bunch of other books out there of different types. So look for those. And I'm on Kindle and Amazon, Barnes and Nobles and all that. But if you buy from the website, you get an autographed copy. So, and I've got other merchandise out there too. Whoa. What was that on Catherine Marie in there?
I clicked on TikTok.
Oh.
I was trying to click Facebook so I could leave a goodbye comment. And, I clicked on TikTok because they're right beside each other on my phone. And it was on some video I've never seen in my life.
And then Dr. Kelsey Frankenstein over there, he's got his wish machine there.
Yeah, we're wishing for a wishing machine, and I even printed out some cards that I had at the thing there. And I got 2 wishing machines on the bench that'll be going out by the end of this week. I forget what states and cities they're going to, but they are being delivered in the United States. I've just had one delivered over in Italy. And he just notified me today that he received his. Sometimes going through customs can slow the packages down. So if you're interested in you're overseas, order early, because I have no control over once it leaves the United States. It's in somebody else's hands, and customs can slow the process down. So that is a very, that's one of my earlier machines. I don't make them quite that way. They're very similar. There we go. That's a more recent one. And that's one that's going out this week, in fact. So we've got a lot of stuff happening in the wishing machine world. If you go to thewishdr.com, a lot of people have written reviews, a lot of information there. And of course, I can always, well, most of the time, be reached at 888-501-6689, our toll-free line where you can call us from anywhere in the Americas anyway, and be glad to talk to you about the wishing machine, how it can work for you. People have had positive results, including myself.
Ooh.
And don't forget Dating the Dead. You want to learn about that book, datingthedead.com. I even have some videos there of interviews with some of the people that have had some strange relationships with not only dead people, but bridges and cars. And there's one lady in there that says that she had sex with Bigfoot.
Bigfoot?
And anyway, ends up that there's the feet are not the only thing big on Bigfoot. That's what he said anyway. So there you go.
Spectrophilia.
Spectrophilia. Yeah, there's people that have relations. Some of the stories in there are from the Catholics. Even the Mormons are known to even marry for the dead and baptize for the dead. There is a community in Indonesia that digs their dead up every little once in a while and cleanses the bodies that are rotting and puts them in fresh clothes and communes with them and rebuilds their coffins and caskets before they rebury them. Humans have had a strange relationship with deceased people. Even the Catholics take dead people and pray them out of purgatory and turn them into saints after they're dead. Now, Kevin and I took a unique twist on that. And Kevin has a certificate suitable for framing, where he has been given a special status as he and I, the only 2 living saints on the planet today.
I have been sainted.
He is a saint.
Better sainted than tainted.
Well, we are saints, at least in our own eyes, and that's the only thing that concerns us. Catherine, we hadn't figured out. I think she wants to be a Mother Teresa, but
Mother Catherine.
I think she fell asleep.
No, I'm not asleep. I'm right here.
So that's it, folks. These shows are archived. If you want to go back and listen to the whole thing, Kevin actually did a super special introduction for our show that he's kind of put out there. And
Yeah.
I can hear that at the beginning. And if you guys have any requests, any desire for anything special, post it to us on YouTube, post it to us on Facebook, let us know, and we will do a show. And I think Kevin's trying to get some guests hooked up, maybe a couple of young ladies from the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, one of them finally responded earlier. Or late. It was was it yesterday or late? Yeah, it was yesterday. She responded and said,
Yeah.
Instagram finally delivered her messages, and they would like to come on sometime next month because they're booked up to the end of this month.
We've got one more show this month, and then we get into the big firework display of July the 4th. And then we go into July and August.
I just messaged you that intro I did at the beginning of the show, so hopefully you might be able to get it to work better than me since my volume went out.
Alabama, with your hosts, Dr. Kelsey Brown, my haunted doll, Kevin Kane, and Lady Catherine.
And I like Lady Catherine.
Lady Catherine, that's the voice of death.
Let me see how I can download this. I'll figure it out. Well, folks, it is now 9:01.
Yes.
And it's been a very pleasurable evening.
Yes, it has.
Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And remember, stay hydrated. It is hot out there.
Yes, it's hot. It's
according to the thermometer on my vehicle, it got up to 100 degrees in Central Alabama. And yeah, it's hot. So be careful.
All right.
All right.
All righty.
Good night, everyone.
I'm going to sign off here. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
I'm waving to y'all.
Bye.